Welcome back, everybody, to day 3 of the Starting Solids Lives. And I did part 1 on this topic yesterday. It's allergies, eczema, when you're starting solids. What do we do? What do we do when our baby reacts? How do we introduce common allergens? Is that important? So all of that's in part 1, and these questions are pulled directly from your question box. So there's a couple questions that didn't quite fit into the categories, and so I answered those on my stories, and the rest are going to get answered today. And I'm doing these lives because my First Foods course is on sale through tonight for $100 off. And when you join, you also get access to a free live Q&A with me. So this is only for course members, and we're gonna get you oriented. You'll have the course for a little bit of time so you can get in there, start learning, and then I'll be there to answer your questions. So that's included when you purchase, which is a bonus. And again, it's $100 off through tonight at midnight. And my husband was talking about Labor Day sales, and mothers are true laborers, right? He was talking about birth, which I thought was cute. So yes, Labor Day sale, get on it. You birthed that baby, you had labor. Let's do it. So back into the questions. We're gonna start right away with this question, which is, baby starting solid slowly flares with eggs and mom's worried about being behind. Okay, so this is a great question and a really good opener too for our topic, because you really are not behind. And I totally understand feeling that way, because there's like milestone zeitgeist, right? You always are trying to meet your milestone and this and this and that, and there's like charts and things, numbers that you're supposed to be meeting a quota for. But we're not machines, so let's just let all that go and be human and observe with your eyes what's going on with your baby. So for example, if your baby seems really hungry and that's what's triggering you feeling worried about being behind, go ahead and feed more. So if you have a food that works really well for your baby, that's a healing food, and for example, I suggest starting really slow, you can always increase and feed more to your baby. That makes good sense, right? Like, we would want to offer our children more food when they're hungry, even though we're trying to make sure that a food doesn't cause too much die-off. So if you're working with meat stock, then I would increase meat stock. So you're starting solid slowly, you have a flare with eggs, no problem. It's not a time for eggs right now. Couple things to make sure you're doing when it comes to eggs is highest quality you can get. A lot of babies respond, especially in the beginning, well to corn and soy free eggs, if you can. And then if you're like, we've been doing meat stock for a month, I'm really ready to reintroduce eggs, then you could go to a duck or a quail egg and introduce that first, just the yolk, a little bit in baby's mouth. But really, if you're working with eczema and you're seeing a flare with eggs, all I would do is increase building foods and increase probiotic foods as your baby allows you to. So beet kvass in between meals is really, really wonderful, supportive for the liver, and increase building foods. So foods that support the liver, that would be red meat. All those B vitamins are gonna be so good for your baby. Increase meat stock, increase animal fats, right? We want to keep helping baby heal and getting stronger every single day. And so that way, when you go to reintroduce the eggs, you won't have the same reaction. Right? We don't want to have the same reaction when we reintroduce. Here's the next question. Husband is allergic to peanuts and I'm scared to introduce them to baby. So I covered this a little bit yesterday. Essentially, your question applies really well to the previous mom's question. Focus on building your baby's body. Your husband and your baby, they're not the same, right? And your baby's body is going to be very different when you introduce the peanuts. So what I would suggest with a parent who has allergens is really working with the baby biome First Foods plan, helping the baby's body develop, grow, get stronger, bring down any inflammation in the immune system. And when you go to introduce, you don't need to rush this at all, but when you do go to introduce, make sure that you feel really, really calm. Make sure that your baby doesn't have any cold, your baby doesn't have any eczema, your baby doesn't have any mucus in their stools. You want to resolve any symptoms before you introduce a common allergen, right? This is contradictory advice, or this is not contradictory advice, this is counter advice, right, to what the mainstream says. But from my perspective, peanuts are not important for nutrition. We do want our children to be able to tolerate them so they don't have a scary anaphylactic allergy to them. But the way that we get there is by supporting their overall health first, rather than thinking like, oh, I need to rush to introduce this because before 1 is when we're supposed to do it for the least likely chance they're going to have an allergen. That sample pool of babies that is tested and, you know, in order to have the least common allergen, they're not drinking meat stock, right? Like, we want to build our baby's guts and immune system before we introduce allergens and feel really confident and calm, okay? Because you being scared to introduce is not going to do anything good for her immune system. Toddlers allergic to dairy and eggs. What foods are good for calcium? So I would suggest that you start with lots of meats. So you need to focus on the meats, and you need to possibly get in some shellfish if you can. There are other foods that will provide calcium, but the most important thing is you start healing the gut so that you can get the dairy and the eggs in the child's diet. And if you want to learn how to do that, that would be in mom baby bio. What should I do with an exclusively breastfed baby who has a dairy sensitivity? Mom cut out dairy at 3 months. Okay, so in this case, your baby's probably about to start solids. You cut out dairy at 3 months, got a couple months to go. I would be working on mom's diet, of course, because anything that you do to change your diet is going to impact your baby. So gentle, subtle changes, even things like helping your body relax more, anything you can do to bring down stress and inflammation is going to be really supportive for any allergy situation, which is pretty cool. So yeah, I would focus holistically on that. I would really just thinking about relaxing and nourishing myself. I would introduce meat stock and get prepared to start solids, because when you have a baby with a dairy sensitivity, you definitely want to use the time of starting solids to reverse that symptom. And it's really possible. I help babies with it all the time. It's a slow reintroduction, and you can learn exactly how to do that in the First Foods plan, but essentially it's all the things that I talk about constantly here, right? We build the body, we lower the inflammation, we introduce high quality foods in small amounts to see how the body reacts. We get information. If there's no response, like no symptom, then we keep feeding that food, building up, getting in more probiotic rich foods, right? So the dairy sensitivity often has to do with missing microbes. And so when we introduce properly fermented dairy that doesn't have lactose in it, this is very soothing and healing for the gut, and it's adding beneficial microbes. So there's a whole big thing about dairy. And actually, I was just at a coffee shop this morning, and every single young woman who was in that coffee shop ordered an alt milk. And not that the dairy they're serving there is that great either, but we're not doing ourselves any favors by having, shelf-stable oat milk and almond milk. There's a lot of pesticides in those things. There's a lot of phytoestrogens and hormone disruptors in those alt milks. And so the thing about dairy is that when we focus on high quality dairy and we properly prepare it and we introduce it to a body that is very healthy, we can tolerate that dairy, and that dairy can even help us heal. And so when it comes to exclusive breastfeeding babies who are sensitive to dairy and mom has to cut out a lot of things from her diet, we want to work the same way with mom and baby, slow and steady, to nourish, to bring down levels of stress, and to, really change our orientation to embrace the food as like, this is healing me. This is, you can speak truth over your foods. You can really intentionally set a time frame for you and your baby to heal. And that is exactly what I teach in the courses. Baby reacts badly to eggs with eczema, 11 months old, and an FPIES reaction to egg. So if you are an FPIES mama, or your baby has had an FPIES type reaction, I teach how to solve it in the First Foods plan. I also have a free FPIES masterclass, which is great. So you can comment FPIES on any of my reels and get that link, because that's going to give you all the information that I have about FPIES and teach you how to start working with it. So I have helped quite a bit of babies with FPIES, which is awesome, because these are really extreme cases and there's not any good information out there for parents in the mainstream what to do. And so the GAPS Science Foundation actually has an amazing study with FPIES showing 6 or 7 different children who completely reversed their FPIES using the GAPS nutritional protocol, all different ages from around the world. So it's really, really profound. And then, of course, practitioners like myself, we have helped also lots of babies get through FPIES type of reactions, completely heal. I have some testimonies on my page specific to FPIES. Now, these babies reacting to eggs, it is, just something that we need to help the overall system to digest. We need to properly source the eggs, so high quality eggs, and it does take some time. I've seen babies react to eggs for several months, really until they get in kefir or breast milk kefir, and they have, big die-off reactions, their microbiome changes, and they can digest the eggs. So it takes time. Eggs are incredibly nourishing. They are so good for us. They're so good for a baby's brain. We're eating, probably up to 7 or 8 dozen eggs a week in my household because they're so nourishing. They're so simple, they're easy to make, and they're reliable. So eggs are so good, and a lot of times kids are reacting to eggs because they're actually helping their body heal. They're super good for the liver, and there's other reasons that I'm not going to name here on this Instagram because you can't really talk about it here or you get banned. But that is another reason why children react. And so typically if parents have gone that route and you and I see an egg reaction, it does take a little bit longer to heal, and we keep them out of the diet for longer because there's specific ingredients in those things that I'm talking about that really do impact whether or not babies react to eggs. Now, it's not every time. Some people who don't opt for those things also have egg sensitivities, and we just need to, again, go back to basics. Like, you're gonna hear me repeat myself again and again because these are the foundations that really, really matter for our children, and it's really amazing. That's why I talk about eczema, I talk about allergies, I talk about digestive issues, I talk about depression and mental health, mood, sleep, poop. All of those things are impacted by what we're eating and how well our gut is functioning. So it is kind of the same answer for a lot of cases, and most of the time I'm just helping moms forge on with the protocol and be more confident. So hopefully these lives and getting to hear me talk a little bit more long form is helping you to sink your teeth into what we're actually doing here and to feel more confident to proceed, to give more foods, to not be so scared of a die-off reaction because they're really, really important for healing. And die-off is something to manage die-off. This is how you do it. And if you don't know, die-off is when pathogenic microbes die in the microbiome because you've introduced more beneficial microbes, and it happens all the time. Or you introduce a food like meat stock, because meat stock is very changing to the microbiome, and it's very healing, and so it can actually cause die-off as well. So when die-off happens, if it's too stressful for baby or for you, meaning it's causing more harm in the ecosystem, then you pull back and you do less. Or you maintain where you are, right? If it's too stressful, then you either pull back or you maintain. If it's just a little bit stressful and you see a flare that's happened in the baby's eczema and you're like, wow, this is supposed to be healing. Why is she having a flare? We heal in layers, right? And so the die-off is actually a good sign. And what I teach in my group coaching program is that you should expect to see die-off. You should expect it because you should expect die-off, you should expect flares when healing eczema because we are helping a changing microbiome, and there's going to be layers that come off first, second, third, fourth, and then eventually you're going to have stability with that. So the final question on the allergy topic is, how long would you wait for a baby with a confirmed allergy? So there's no universal time that I would wait or say that everyone should, after X amount of time, we try it again. Generally speaking, whether you have an allergy test or not, I say 4 weeks without that food with intentional building. So we do a lot of meat stock in that time. We start introducing brines. Oftentimes before I reintroduce an allergy, I want to see progress. So I want to see change in the children, and that happens, of course, right? So it's people will start to feel like their baby got stronger, they're sleeping better, they had this big poop reaction, and then things are more stable after they had a huge blowout or something like that. So those are all good signs that there's things changing, and then we can try again in a really calm way, a little bit of egg on the finger or whatever the allergen is, a little bit on the finger, and move forward. And you can also give more time. So if you're just no, I feel really good where we're at, I love how my baby is responding to these foods, I want to wait a little bit longer to reintroduce, you can. Now, when it comes to the allergens that I'm talking about people to reintroduce, like dairy and eggs, I am wanting to use those foods for healing. And so I don't want to delay it for very long, because I know those foods are going to be really good for the baby's healing. And so I'm often like, if someone's working, on GAPS and they're really going at it for 6 months or something, like I'm like, yeah, it's time to reintroduce foods. Like, we got to get this thing moving along, because we're not doing this to be stuck with a small amount of foods every single day. You want to be able to eat all the healing foods all day long, as much as you want. Okay, so as you can hear, these allergy questions overlapped with a lot of skin issues. So now I'm going to jump to talking about more skin specific questions. And again, there's a lot of overlap, which I mentioned this in the part 1 of the live. So if you haven't watched that, go ahead and watch that after this. But, there is a relationship between the gut, the immune system, the skin. And if you've ever heard of the atopic march, that is basically this path where children start with eczema, they then develop allergies, and then they develop asthma. And so from a microbiome perspective, what the atopic march is dysbiosis in the gut, which is impacting the skin. So whenever we have dysbiosis of the gut, that means that the gut is leaky, because we have yeast tendrils that can grow like as long as a tube sock and actually poke holes through the gut. So that's opening up. When there's dysbiosis, it's opening up the holes of leaky gut. Then there's particles flowing in and out of the bloodstream, and that is impacting the immune system. And the immune system is rightly responding to particles that are meant to stay inside of the gut but are actually in the bloodstream. And what that does is both of those situations back up the liver. So then the liver is backed up because it's dealing with a dysbiotic gut, which is off-gassing toxins. The liver has to deal with that. The gut is leaky, so it cannot absorb the nutrients properly. So the liver is not getting the nutrients that it needs in order to properly digest and detox, right? Because the liver is actually an organ of digestion. So the liver is not able to digest and detox properly. So now we have this toxic load that's building up in the body. The skin is already impacted. The body's overreacting to foods that are meant to be inside the immune system. And then that toxic load backs up to the lungs. And the lungs are mucillary escalators. So they use like musogenic, I don't know how else to say it besides mucillary escalator, right? They're pushing fluid up out of the lungs. That's why we cough, anytime someone has like a bronchial or a lung issue, we always go to the gut because we want to get the lung inflammation down, but it's also very much tied to the liver and the immune system, right? So the atopic march, gut dysbiosis, starts with the skin. Toxins are coming out through the skin because they don't have enough, there's not enough nutrients for them to leave through the gut, and the gut's leaky. The allergies happen because of the toxins and food particles in the bloodstream. That backs up the liver, and then that backs up the lungs eventually too. So we want to stop all of this before we get to that point. And I'll answer now the last little questions about eczema and skin symptoms around starting solids. So red spots around the mouth. What does that mean? It can mean a lot of things, and typically what I see with the red spots around the mouth is just like it will come up for maybe an hour or something, and it's typically related to fermented foods. It could be related to meat stock, right? Or sometimes people even see it with red meat, and I've gotten that question a couple times. So what I would do in that situation is support the liver. So everything that we can do to support digestion and liver is going to be really, really helpful. So what do I mean when I say support digestion? Keep giving meat stock. In between meals, give some beet kvass, which I teach you how to make inside the first foods course. And meat stock in between meals is going to be the most beneficial for the liver. You can put a little bit of castor oil on your baby's liver, and you can do detox baths. So all of that I have instructions for inside the first foods plan. And then generally speaking, like you could try for a period of time to do like a low histamine stock, which means you freeze it and you serve it just reheated every time. You don't serve a lot of leftover foods. I don't tend to see parents having to do this for a long period of time, but like 3 weeks or something can really help to just bring down the inflammation alongside of supporting the liver and the gut at the same time. All of these symptoms are going to resolve over time with the healing foods. It's not like something that stays forever. And if you've been able to track, something that happens with a certain food, if you're like, oh, every time I give sauerkraut, she gets this reaction for half an hour. Can you try to give less sauerkraut? Can you switch up the fermented food that you give? Build the body and then reintroduce the kraut. So why would a patch of eczema show up before starting solids? Because of mama's gut. So eczema is not, people are always trying to pinpoint flares for skin and food, like this food and that food. But what we know is that when the gut is leaky and there's food particles going into the bloodstream, all sorts of foods can cause reactions. So moms are like coming to me pulling their hair out because they can't pinpoint a reaction because it's not a specific food that's the flare. It's the fact that the gut is dysbiotic and imbalanced. And so we need to close the holes of leaky gut and we need to bring in beneficial microbes. Now, a small patch of eczema before starting solids, that has to do with mama's gut and how your baby was born. And I would definitely suggest going and looking at that post that I have recently on, how to work with an eczema baby when starting solids. And then you can work on your own breast milk. You can work on your own body, your own gut health. Probiotics could be really helpful in that case. So that's really common that I see it a lot. Like a lot of exclusively breastfed babies have eczema, and that is because mama and baby share a microbiome. So this question I just saw in the chat, I'm genuinely curious. What are your credentials? Are you a nutritionist? You bring a lot of great information. Yeah, I am a functional nutritional therapy practitioner and a GAPS practitioner. So I worked as a private chef for 5 years. I was a dancer before that, so I did a lot of embodiment work and social justice work with healing, healing arts. And then I moved into becoming a private chef, and then I went to nutrition school, and then I got a GAPS practitioner certification, and I'm a mom of 2. And so I've helped a lot of moms with this because it's the lifestyle that I live every day, and I teach this stuff because it works, because I have studied it and live it every day. And I've helped a lot of moms do it too. Baby's cheeks get itchy after stock, but not every batch or every time. So what I would do in that situation is I would work with low histamine stock for like 3 weeks and just see if you can just only serve baby fresh stock that's fresh from frozen. And I have the recipe exactly how to make low histamine stock in the course. My son tested positive for candida and mold. Would this still work for his eczema? Yes. So the environment, of course, impacts our microbiome, and you want to change your environment so that you are the most resilient possible, right? That's kind of the whole point here. So if candida, I talk about candida a lot in all my courses. It's not only candida actually though. It's there's a lot of different strains of yeast, and only candida is really studied, and they all off-gas all different toxins. So to bring down the levels of candida in the body is really helpful when there's an environmental crisis, like having mold in the home. And I definitely recommend bringing down, I definitely recommend getting out of the mold and remediating that mold as soon as possible. Okay, baby with eczema loves stock. Is it okay to add veggies on their own? So with a baby with eczema, go slowly and one at a time with the fiber, because vegetables, they need to be well cooked in the stock, and it just depends. So some babies are going to be like, yay, I'm doing so good with my veggies and like it feels really good. And other babies, the fiber is going to be too much for them when they have eczema. And so you just keep going with the building foods. Start with the fermented foods first, and then cooked veggies in stock only. Okay. All right. So we're going to now switch to talking about some digestive health questions. And then I'll get to the chat, and I'm just going to stay on for a few more minutes. Is burping and non-painful reflux a sign of die-off? It could be, but it also could just be that like baby's eating a little too fast. I would support with see what helps. So a little bit of kefir might really help with that. So burping, gas is involved, right? Gas is trapped in the upper GI, and so maybe a little bit of diluted apple cider vinegar before you eat, maybe feeling really calm before you eat, having a cup of meat stock before he has his other foods to prepare for the other foods that he's eating. And if it's the meat stock that's causing the burping, then yes, possibly that could be a die-off sign. Okay, 2 constipation questions. Constipated 8-month-old after antibiotics, and a 15-month-old constipated for 4 months who is taking probiotics and magnesium. So constipation, this is one that takes some time to resolve, but it's really, really important to figure out how and what your baby needs. So I teach in the First Foods plan top 5 root cause reasons for constipation, and that's an entire lesson in there. It's great. I also have a free, I have free information here on the page. The highlight is constipation highlight, and I have tips there. So beet kvass in between meals is really, really good, and let them go like as much beet kvass as they want. Increased fats, those are always my basics, and then magnesium baths every day. Castor oil in the belly can be really good. And then for the antibiotics one, you definitely want to support with probiotics. So sauerkraut, commercial probiotics, Smidge is what I recommend. That can be great. Let's see. Breastfed with recurring thrush, that's yeast, so you need to work on mom's diet. Is it normal to throw up after kraut? No, it's not normal. It's somewhat common. Give less. Don't go too much. What do you typically see with die-off from meat stock and brine? Well, die-off can change between babies. So die-off is really usually an echoing of symptoms you already have. So like if it can make things exaggerated, it seems. If you're familiar with the term extinction burst, like things will sort of like go like pow 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 before they completely stop, right? So die off, if you're having skin issues, it's probably going to look like more skin issues. Die off can look like mucus in the stools. Die off can look like a fever. Die off can look like so many different things. So in my live and pre-recorded courses, I go over die off more. Okay, let's see. I'm going to go to the questions before I hop off. Let's see here. Up top. Okay, what foods do I recommend for a baby with failure to thrive? Okay, everything I teach in the First Foods plan. It's really important for those babies because our microbiome, one of the jobs is to absorb nutrients. So whenever I see failure to thrive, I always think about microbiome and lack of absorption. So we need to start giving meat stock every single day as much as possible and supporting that microbiome, working with animal fats, liver, all the building foods. It's perfect for babies' failure to thrive. Let's see. Next question is, we got that one. Does mold exposure call for the same protocol? Yes. I mean, I've lived in mold before, and I am 100% better when I'm on full gaps in the gut healing protocols that I teach when I'm in that moldy environment. And it's helped me to like be resilient and not to get like activated when I'm around it. Can a 9-month-old actually heal from a peanut reaction, coughing, sneezing, and red blotches? Absolutely, 100%. Yeah, and like that's good because she didn't have anaphylaxis. So that means that the reaction wasn't so severe. So the plan for her would not be to like, which is what they would say, would be to like slowly keep giving her microdoses. No, you want to heal. You want to help her heal, bring down inflammation, help her microbiome, and then reintroduce later. So she has 0 reaction. Face flushing for a 1-year-old after naps and in sun. Where should I start? Interesting. I would start with meat stock. See what happens when you guys introduce meat stock. Are there certain foods that a mom can help build baby's gut while breastfeeding? Absolutely. That's in my course, Mama Baby Biome, and all the foods that I teach here, meat stock, liver, animal fats, those are wonderful. So your body's going to sacrifice your nutrient stores and give everything that you have to your baby at the expense of your baby. And so that's why you might hear like, oh, there's no like need to change your diet while breastfeeding because your baby's going to get everything that they need. And that is true. And the other reason why they stopped, there was a lot of like taboo around talking about improving mom's diet with breastfeeding is because it was thought that it was actually keeping people from breastfeeding because they're like, oh, my diet's not good enough, I shouldn't breastfeed. That's not the case at all. Any woman should and can breastfeed when they can. right? So that is my stance. And of course we can make our breast milk more nutrient dense. Of course we can make ourselves feel better with food. Like that's just a no-brainer to me. What you put in is what you get out. So what's available to your baby in your breast milk is what they're gonna get. Can ferments be given separate to the meat stock? Yeah, of course. I was reading something last night that said for healing, you should wait on winter squashes. We're eating a ton of butternut squash. Yeah, it could be, Courtney, but I know you well. Butternut squash is like, a better squash is a pumpkin. So if you can switch from butternut squash to like a kabocha squash or a pumpkin, that is less starchy and fibrous. Best way to navigate egg sensitivities. I just opened up the live with this, so you'll be able to watch that in just a second. Would the first foods course be good to pair with being in mama baby biome? Yes, it is. They're meant to go together. They are, obviously the concepts overlap, but the lessons are completely different. Can environment affect beet kvass to mold while fermenting? Absolutely. Whenever someone's like, I can never get my ferments, and I know they're doing it perfectly, then we always want to look for environmental stuff. But what I would suggest for you, Grace, is just doing a 3-day ferment. So just tighten on that lid really good, do a 3-day ferment, and then after 3 days, put it in the fridge, and it will keep fermenting in the fridge. What would you suggest giving for a fever as a part of die-off? I would just keep them warm, give them a bath, keep giving them meat stock. Okay, do one-on-one consultation. So for anyone in my courses, I have one-to-ones with my team, and I also have group coaching, which is about to reopen up, and it's a really fun program. So I definitely recommend getting into group coaching, because that seems like more your fit, but we have one-on-ones as well, and anyone in my courses can apply for them. So you can send me a DM. Each baby is different, but how long does it take to heal fully on average? There is no average. I'm glad you're making some progress, and I can definitely help you. Oh snap, Jess. I can help you in my group coaching, get down to it. Do I recommend tests like HTM essays? If you want to do that for fun, Grace, you could. Okay. All right, y'all, I'm out of here. I'll see you. Don't forget that the first food sale ends tonight. $100 off, and I really enjoy doing these lives. If you like it, leave a comment, because that'll show it to more people and it'll encourage me to get on here more. All right, see you later.